So who are you?
I'm Satya Nadella. I lead the MBS R&D team. So this is all the group that's building all the Dynamics products, CRM and ERP, and even all our Office small business products that we ship under Small Business Accounting and Small Business Edition.
Wow. Now you guys are coming out with a bunch of stuff lately. I've been around a couple of your teams lately, and I was over in Copenhagen too. So.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So
yeah.
you've really gone and seen all our distribution.
Yeah, they invited me over.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've had a pretty big sort of year of releases. I mean, it started off with a launch of Office Small Business Accounting, which is sort of Microsoft's entry into the small business accounting space, and also a significant milestone for Office to really have very focused small business value.
Right.
And then we've had a very good release of CRM, where we went from CRM 1.2 to CRM 3.0,
yep.
And it's truly a good 3.0, and it's getting some very, very positive feedback. It's a significant sort of release for us. And on the ERP side, we have a roadmap that sort of talks about Wave 1 and Wave 2, because we have a couple of different products there, and then the big goal for us is to start sharing attributes and technologies across these products and converge these in stages or in phases.
Yep.
And sort of the first phase of that started in earnest. We had a release of what we call Dynamics GP, formerly known as Great Plains 9.0, which is a pretty significant release, and then we have a long queue of releases for the other three products, Navision, Solomon, and Exapta.
Right. How long have you been working on the Dynamics team?
Yeah, so I have been at Microsoft now for 15 years. Started in Windows, and then mostly spent my time all through the 90s in the servers. And then since the acquisition, I started a thing called vCentral, which was our first foray into small business services.
Okay, I was a customer there.
Yeah, and then ever since the acquisition of Great Plains, I've been leading the R&D team.
Right.
So yeah, so I guess I started. vCentral became part of what's today Microsoft Business Solutions, and that's how I got here, and that's kind of how I got to the job I have.
Wow. The last year has been a little tumultuous in the Dynamics team, hasn't it? It's because I've seen some press, and there's some reorgs and some redeciding, and it seemed like things slipped a little bit, and now it seems like they're really happening.
Yeah, in fact, actually, last year, the changes were we announced a new name. So Dynamics was like the brand which signaled that, hey, we have different products, but they all are...
Where did that name come from? So that's actually one of the more interesting Microsoft names.
No, I know. In fact, but
how
frankly...
do you keep the marketing people at bay?
That's true. But actually, it's the marketing people who came up with the name.
Oh, good. Maybe somebody deserves a 4 or 5 this year.
It is a great name. I love it. It does really play into, what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to really adjust to a very dynamic business world and what have you. So therefore, I think it plays well. There was, in some sense, if you go back deep in history, there was a product that Great Plains had called Dynamics. Not that this is really that, but the name resonated, and I believe our marketing folks did all their great research and came back with a great punchy name, and I love it.
Yeah.
I was associated with BizTalk when it was named BizTalk, and I like that, and this was definitely a lot more punchier than that.
Yeah. And my camera is still screwing up, but we'll live with it. It's part of the anti-marketing marketing. When you use a $700 camera, sometimes it
so yeah, to your question, though, we've had the new brand announcement. But other than that, as far as just executing on our roadmap, we've had no change. In fact, for the last 2-3 years, where we said, in fact, last Convergence, which was our big customer event last March, is when we sort of talked about the waves and so on. And in some sense, we've just executed on that. So from that perspective, I feel very, very good, because after all, when we did acquire these companies, we did evolve the Microsoft roadmap, there was a lot of change. So I kind of feel like we're really, all that change is behind us, and now we're at a stage where we just have to keep sort of following through, and I feel good about what we've done, at least in the last 12 months.
Yeah. Were you involved with the acquisitions at all?
Yeah, pretty much. So I...
what makes a good because this is something my friends in Silicon Valley are like, should we get acquired by Microsoft? What makes a good acquisition from the Microsoft standpoint?
I mean, from Microsoft standpoint, I think that any time where you're getting some solid asset, I think at some level, I remember Paul Moritz, whom I worked in his team for a long time, and he had said that, listen, whenever you try to acquire people, code, and a market position, it's a little too much. You should be very, very clear about what you're requiring. Yeah. But at the same time, whenever you have an acquisition where one of those three things is very strong, then you know you have something to build from. So I think in our case, really there was beyond everything, I mean, of course, the people. We wouldn't have been in this business without the people because besides...
And there was a lot of people, too.
There's significant...
When I went to Copenhagen, I couldn't believe it. It was,
it's a full campus,
1,200 people there.
That's right, yeah, including all the sales, marketing resources, and so on. These were, we bought the two leading mid-market ERP vendors, right? One which had a North American footprint, Great Plains. Yeah. The other which was Navision, which had an EMEA footprint. So it was sort of 85% of Great Plains revenue was in North America, 85% of the Navision revenue was in EMEA, and both of them had leadership positions. So we acquired them, so we acquired a lot of the people you met in Copenhagen and Fargo, North Dakota. If you ever get a chance to go there, you'll
someday.
You'll see all of the people from the Great Plains side. But the key thing is also the business model, which is you don't really build out the channels that reach small and mid-market businesses by just snapping your fingers overnight. Right? Yeah. This is the asset. And you have to build products with that sort of ecosystem in mind. You should know what you got to be out of the box, but what is customized, and then have frameworks that are approachable. So you can't build a raw framework for some rocket scientists and say, here you go, go figure this out. So therefore, I think what you got was a good sense for what does it mean to reach these small and medium-sized businesses world over, and that's been invaluable.
Yeah, I'm trying to go back in my mind to 15 years ago. And I was working at a startup. We didn't have email. We didn't have the web. We barely had printers. Yeah. And Microsoft helped bring a whole lot of that. What's the challenge for the next 10 years? What if we met in 10 years from now? What's going to be the thing that why is Microsoft investing in
this space? Yeah, that's a very, very good question. I mean, at some level, why did we get into the space? There's just the sheer attractiveness of the space, which is even if you look at all the innovation that's gone on in business applications, most of it's been super focused on the enterprise market. I mean, the SAPs or the Siebels or the Oracles of the world have historically been focused on the enterprise market, and they've tried to with the kind of success that you have when you try to shove something that was built for somebody else to somebody else. But that said, no one's really built out a position in the small and medium-sized business, and that's just because no one's really invested in the R&D side. No one's really tried to figure out what's the layering, because if you try to do everything for everybody, like i.e. every vertical in every geography, you're always going to fail. But if you can figure out what should the ecosystem do, both ISVs as well as partners, and then what the horizontal providers should do, then you can come up with a more efficient sort of system. So at some level, that's kind of one of the things we want to do, which is organize what is today a very inefficient marketplace where there are 15,000 general ledgers when there don't need to be. But at the same time, though, you can have specialization by vertical and by geography, which is necessary because you can't just have one company try and figure that out for all small and medium-sized businesses. The next thing, though, is if you look at any business application, in fact, this is one of those things where we've done a lot of primary work, which is went and talked to a lot of users of our systems as well as other systems. And then you realize that the usage of business applications is fairly low. In fact, it's fairly low even in the enterprise. If you ask around in our campus, how many people, we're supposed to be an SAP company, if you will, but how many people really use SAP? And very few. I mean, there's people in the
I worked at NEC, and out of 15 people, I was the only guy who really used it.
That's right. In fact, there was an interesting study done by our CRM team about CRM activity in one of the, let's unnamed vendors' install base. And they came back and said that they'd installed a CRM system, paid millions of dollars for it, and they went to the desktop of one of the salespeople and said, hey, how many touch points have you had with your CRM system? And for a related account that they were doing sales with, they found out that 0.5% of the time was spent using the real CRM system, whereas the rest of the 99.95% of the time was spent in Outlook. Yeah. So that's the real problem. So one of the other transformations we're trying to really achieve, and we have a thing which is a cutesy name of saying, listen, we want to bring roles-based computing, which is to really put the people who use business applications at the center, and use our ERP or CRM data and process as one of the things, because you just can't wish away all the ad hoc communication that happens. At some level, that's as critical for completing a task or in the context of business process. So with CRM is kind of the classic, where instead of saying, listen, log into your CRM system, every salesperson, and enter your opportunities or enter your leads so that your manager can have it, we said, let's bring Salesforce automation right into Outlook. Make the promotion of email into a CRM activity sort of one click.
Yep.
And that's something you can actually do for every role in the company. So one of the things we have now is we have around 50 canonical roles that we've identified. And we're going one role at a time and saying, hey, what information aggregation? Like accounts payable clerk, let's say. They come in the morning, they're probably very heads down and they're looking at, what's the situation in AP, but you still want to be able to sort of look at, hey, what is the ad hoc information in your SharePoint site or in Outlook, and aggregate all of these. So we sort of take a look at everything from sales, marketing. Support is another place where you are dealing with a lot of ad hoc communications with customers using a variety of medium, but then you have a structured knowledge base and a structured case management system. So how do you bridge those two worlds, if you will? So we think the end user experience and being able to bridge this structured and unstructured is the big transformation, if you will, which uniquely Microsoft can do, as you can imagine, with the assets that we have.
Yeah.
The last one is probably sort of closer to the world you live in, which is there is no such thing as a canonical biz app, which is every instance of a business application is different, right, by vertical or by geography, right? If you're a manufacturer, you want to sort of customize it in one way. If you're a discrete manufacturer, you want to customize it in one particular way. If you're a process manufacturing, it's different completely. Yeah. So it's all about how do I change the data model, how do I change the business logic and process, and even the user experience. So unlike sort of some other applications Microsoft's historically built, you got to have a developer framework and a tool set that your ecosystem can truly operate on. And again, there are multiple skill sets involved, right? There are ISVs who can, of course, open up Visual Studio and program away. Yeah. But you need access-like simplicity when it comes to our channel. So doing that is the other piece. So again, Microsoft has the assets across what we do in Visual Studio and what we have in, say, SharePoint Designer in Office or Access in Office. So how do you bring the tool story, the runtime story, to benefit our customizers?
The more you can push that stuff down to the edges, the more interesting stuff happens.
That's correct, and that's clear.
At NEC, I didn't have an IT department.
Yeah.
Right. We wouldn't spend $100,000 on building a huge app to do something little, but somebody like me could, get in there and
that's right. I mean, if you think about like Access and the kind of, it was the tool for all the apps in the tail, right? I mean, everybody built an Access app. And so now what does it mean to create such a framework which is highly sort of easy to approach for anybody customizing a Dynamics app?
Interesting. How far along that path are you?
We've done a lot. If you look at CRM, the technical tricks here is to push as much of sort of your description into metadata.
Right.
And so we've done a fairly good job in CRM of being able to build a very simple tool set around CRM, so you can add an entity. So you are an insurance company and you bought CRM, and you obviously track not customers but maybe some other clients, or you have a different set of attributes you track by client. So you can add new entities, you can define new workflows, and do all of this in a kind of an Access-like web front end. Yeah. Which is pretty cool. And so we also have some rich metadata in our Dynamics ERP applications. One of the things we want to do is really make this all native in Visual Studio, but also have a version, if you will, of Visual Studio which is very approachable for the low end. Kind of what you've done for the coders with Express SKUs, yeah. But think of it even one level below for somebody who's just dealing with the models as opposed to even code.
Right. What's the business opportunity for developers, since Channel 9 is usually for...
It's huge, right? I mean, if you look at our ecosystem, one way to look at it is we have approximately 7,000 partners, and these 7,000 partners worldwide selling our products. And you got to remember, these are not, you can sort of talk about the big numbers Microsoft has in the partner community, but these are people who are exclusively focused in selling our products, and each one of them has a development staff. So these are the folks who take our product, customize it for a given set of customers. So that's a huge opportunity. So I would say, hey, one of the best sort of franchise opportunities for anybody would be to become an MBS partner, because you can then take Dynamics and then specialize in a vertical, in a geography, and really help out small and medium-sized businesses. So that's a pretty big one. Like just given that you were in Denmark recently, if you look at it, our density of partners in Denmark, where we have a very good position in the market, is very, very high. And one of the things that Steve keeps trying to repeat as a mantra is that he wants the entire world to be like Denmark. Yep. So if we can have the density of partners to our product, like in Denmark, in every district in the United States, for example, that would be a great place. And so that's kind of one place where we're focused on. Okay. The other one is ISVs. Because ISVs who are building, say, point functionality or even vertical functionality, right? So you can take our product and then add, say, a payroll service, or you can add some taxation services, or take something like what we have and then specialize for process manufacturing. Here is how shop floor control works, or what have you.
Right.
So those are all ISV opportunities, and we have a huge, big catalog of ISVs. Who add to all of our Dynamics. We have a thing called the Solution Finder, where a customer can go in, type in their sort of type of business and geography. You get not only the local partners who can help you with implementation, but all the ISV solutions that sort of are relevant.
If somebody watching this video was interested in one of those two paths, where would they learn more?
They should just go to Microsoft.com/MBS. And I think they'll be able to sort of navigate to all of the sort of the Solution Finder asset and all the product information.
Cool. Why does a guy like you leave Windows?
Well, I mean,
Windows is like, isn't that like the Super Bowl,
Well, yeah, I mean, it was for the first 9 years. I joined just before.
Still is, man.
It is. I always... Yeah, I mean, Windows has just been was a great trip. I mean, as I said, I joined the server side of it, and I was there for a long time. And then in the mid-90s, actually, I got the opportunity to go do something new. And in fact, at that point, it was vCentral and MSN. I moved there actually with a huge contingent of sort of refugees from systems at that time. And ever since then, it sort of one thing led to the other, and I got to Dynamics.
Yeah. Why? I'm trying to think about what a customer would ask. Why Microsoft instead of XYZ company? But Microsoft's not known for this space. Right?
Yeah, that's kind of. I really think that no one's really done this, where they've brought the end user angle, which I talked about, right? Hey, instead of building a CRM system, which is a bunch of schema and a set of forms, really think about CRM and the usage of CRM and bring Salesforce automation to Outlook. And I think that approach applied, as I said, to every role, we have a very unique opportunity. The second one is this developer thing, which is if you look at what does it mean to customize a business application, who has got the experience with tools, and runtimes and frameworks, and make it, again, broadly available. So every C#, anyone who is trained in C# to anybody who's trained in VB.net or in our Whitehorse set of tools.
I used to work for Visual Basic Programmer Show, so I always got to look up for my VB.
Hey, we love VB. In fact, a couple of our products were built using VBA as the programming model in many of the cases. So that's sort of another thing. So Microsoft knows a thing or two about developers, and that's very front and center to how you bring about sort of efficiency to the ecosystem. And then lastly, the stack shouldn't be minimized. After all, we are a database app. Give you a good example. You want to set up a CRM system. One of the first things you may want to do is actually enable a mobile workforce, right? Because salespeople are always on the road. And in order to set that up, there you go. And then you want to set up a perimeter network. So one of the things you want to do in a perimeter network for a small and medium is you don't want to sort of make that overly complicated. But if you, for example, are using an ISA server already, which you may have deployed, and you're already deployed AD, we have a wizard to go deploy CRM on the perimeter network with a portal and sort of allow GPRS type of access and what have you. So those kinds of things where we can really get the entire Microsoft stack to come together for the IT administrator, so that they're not, or in this case, many case partners who are helping, really so that they're not wasting their time, spending too much money and energy, getting just the setups going.
Wow. That's interesting, the ecosystem. Anything else that we should know about Dynamics?
I think this is, I think that although this space we are entering, one could say, hey, why is Microsoft getting into it? I would always go back to the fact that the small and medium-sized space has really not seen much innovation. Nobody's really taken what it takes to reach a global customer base. There are 40 million of them worldwide, with the right approach from a channel perspective, and also the right product, which puts end users and developers and IT administrator all into the mix, and not just, as I said, some schema in a database with some forms. So I think that we really feel like we're well positioned. It's not there are tough and respectable competitors like Oracle and SAP, but at the same time, I think in this case they have the issue of they built it for a different design point, and they have as much of an adjustment to make.
Interesting. I saw on the web that you guys announced Dynamic Snap.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah. So we this just today announced a set of add-ins, if you can think of them, or snap-ins for Office 2003.
And we're in mid-February, right? This will probably be in a couple of weeks. So.
Yeah. And so in Office 2003, one of the things we did was we said, let's take advantage of VSTO and build out a set of add-ins so that end users don't need to log into your Dynamics application and go to a different place, but in context of their Outlook, enter, for example, their vacation schedule, and it gets automatically entered into your back office. You want to do time reporting, so you're a services company, you use Outlook all the time to schedule your meetings with your customers and clients and what have you, and they're all billable hours, and you just want to report it instead of logging into a different system, entering all that information. Right from Outlook now you can enter that information as billable hours.
Wow.
The other cool thing we did was, again, using the VSTO and its programmable task pane. You now have the ability, both for our CRM as well as our Dynamics AX product, the ability to retrieve any information. You can do a query, so a generalized query of customers, invoices, orders, what have you. So just imagine you're writing...
What is the AX product, by the way?
AX is what Exapta is one of our ERP products, so formerly known as Exapta. So now we have this Dynamics as the prefix and then suffixes of AX, NAV, GP, what have you. So this task pane that we again built out allows you to get at any ERP data from within Word, from Excel, from Outlook. So you're writing a letter in Word and you want to be able to reference some actual order information. You can go bring it up in your task pane, drag and drop, and so on and so forth. So it sort of really makes information access that much more ubiquitous. For anybody who's a Dynamics customer and an Office 2003 customer, you get this you get this. And the other sort of interesting thing we did was, in order to really foster a lot of ecosystem innovation, we released it as shared source. So we put it up on god.net, and we really are expecting lots of our partners and other ISVs to go build out these add-ins or snap-ins for Dynamics, so that you can now have Office users, if you will, who can really get at ERP and CRM business process and data, and not have to do double entry of data and so on.
Interesting. I think we've covered pretty much the waterfront. Is there how are you going to be judged over the next year?
I think, where it's sort of, at some level, we have to realize this promise. As I said, we've sort of made some great first steps in really bringing the ease of use and the user experience of Office plus Dynamics together, doing the developer story right, and then making it, brain it simple, so to speak, for the IT administrator to be able to put all these things together. I think we're definitely in the first wave. There's definitely a second wave, and so I kind of look forward to finishing the first wave, which is all through calendar year 06 as well as 07. And then in the Orcus time frame is when we will have the next wave of sort of innovation, 08 plus. And I think that's when we'll completely bring some of these pieces together that we talked about.
One last thing. What do you want to hear from customers?
Any feedback. I mean, it's sort of at some level, one of the things that, especially from your audience, is we want to get a lot more of what one would consider classic Microsoft developer community folks engaged in this opportunity. In fact, with CRM, we're seeing a lot of it already, but we would like them to sort of even think about the ERP opportunity. So you just imagine, you've been doing a lot of work around, say, custom solutions for corporations, deploying our collaboration tools, say in SharePoint or what have you, and that would be a natural place, because whenever you're deploying something like Exchange or SharePoint, which probably is a collaborative business process that is the problem that you're trying to really solve, that has an analog in our world, and it'll be nice to be able to sort of really tie those things together. So that'll be the feedback that I would look for anybody who's listening to this.
Cool. Thank
All
you
right.
very much
Hey,
for
thank
spending
you.
some time.
Thanks for coming.